Hello, it's Davy Mooney coming to you from the University of North Texas, where I run the jazz guitar program. I'm a Benedetto artist, Sunnyside Records artist. Just got through with the Wayback DFW mini tour last week before, then we had Thanksgiving break, so it's like late November. It's great. We had John Ellis, Felipe Silveira, Paulinho Vicente, and Thiago Alves all in town. We played a concert here at UNT. Played over at Steve's Wine Bar. Shout out to Steve Severance and Karen and everyone at Steve's Wine Bar. And went out to Sundance Square in Fort Worth and played. Shout out to the Bass family and Greg Newman and everybody out there. It was fun, y'all. It was it's always interesting to see how my skills shake out, not only as a guitarist and performer, but also a tour manager, booking agent, publicist, etc. Yeah, anyway, I'm really glad we did it, and it was a lot of fun. I also have two Mel Bay books, Into the Labyrinth, Anatomy of Position Playing for Jazz Guitar, Personalizing Jazz Vocabulary. And yeah, we're getting ready for juries and all that, end of the semester, little holiday break. I'm going to go down to Brazil, play a little bit with the cats, and yeah, get ready to do it all over again. I know I took this video, I took like a couple weeks off just because I had too much going on doing videos, but I wanted to talk about something a little different rather than just taking a tune, which is what I usually do in exploring a jazz standard. I'm going to talk about playing trio, just trio jazz guitar. And by trio, I mean that guitar, bass, and drums trio, which, you know, it's interesting. I think the first example of guitar trio like that with no piano, no horn, was actually like Barney Kessel and the Pole Winners. What is that, 56 or so, with Ray Brown and Shelly Manne. And it seems kind of late, but then, you know, you look back, I mean, none of those records before that, there was always piano, or usually piano and a horn. There aren't really many, I didn't do my research on this, I don't know that there's many where it's guitar, bass, and drums, and a horn player. I know Jim Hall with Art Farmer, but that might have been a little bit later. Anyway, so I encourage the students here to do, when they do their departmental performances, to do trio. It's not the only thing, it's not 100% of the focus of what we do here, but I think it's important to put yourself in that situation where you're a little bit exposed and you're responsible for generating some harmony, generating some time, maybe putting in some chords. And I have kind of like a listening list of jazz guitar trio records that were really important to me coming up. And, you know, it's not a comprehensive list by any means, but just the ones that really inspired me when I was starting out. First off, when I was in high school in New Orleans at Benjamin Franklin High School and also the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, I took a class at UNO for a few semesters, University of New Orleans, the guitar ensemble with Steve Mazikowski, and he was doing trio gigs at Snug Harbor on Tuesday nights. Not every Tuesday, but pretty regularly, maybe a couple times a month. And I used to go out there and watch him do it, you know, live with either like Jason Marsalis or Johnny Vidakovich, Bill Huntington on bass, James Singleton, sometimes Chris Severin on bass, different musicians. And, you know, Snug Harbor, he would play 2 hour-and-a-half sets. So crazy. I would stay for one of them, and then I had to go home and go to bed and wake up and go to high school. But there's a live record that he did called, it's live at Snug Harbor. I don't know that it's on any streaming services, but it's on YouTube. And I really studied that record, and I copied, basically copied it. And then later he did a studio record called For Joe that's great too, that you can get with Johnny Vidakovich and Bill Huntington. But man, I love live at Snug Harbor. He does Alone Together, he does Invitation, Giant Steps, killer record. So that was one of the early inspirations. And what he did on that record that I was trying to emulate, not just his playing and his lines, but the way he would kind of drop chords in, sort of like a pianist in between the lines. And so I tried to really emulate that. So for instance, the record starts with Alone Together. And so he's like, these aren't the exact voicings he uses. That idea that it's not just the single note against, you know, the bass and drums like a saxophone trio, but that you would also put in some chords, though it's not I don't have two hands like a pianist. I'm going to have two hands, but they're not doing the same thing. So it's kind of a little juggling, a little bit of illusion, smoke and mirrors to make it happen. And I was really into that record. And then I remember when I got to college here, my roommate had Lenny Breau, The Velvet Touch Live, which is a great trio record. I mean, he does so much more on that album. He does solo stuff, he sings. That record is a real inspiration to me. It's my favorite Lenny Breau thing. And yeah, the way he really is able to sustain things in the higher voice while moving the chords around in the lower voices. Seems like a classical technique. So I remember copying that and trying to create that illusion of two people playing, not just that there's the single note line and then the chord and then the single note line, but kind of, you can't do them all at the same time necessarily unless you're Charlie Hunter. Shout out to Charlie Hunter. But I mean, Lenny Breau kind of does them at the same time too, but to try to create that illusion so I can still do what I want to do with the single note lines and kind of have a little commentary going on underneath it, like a pianist might do. So those were two big ones. I mean, I'll sort of demonstrate, I'll play on Alone Together in a little bit, but some other records, jazz guitar trio records that I think were really important to me. I remember getting Question and Answer, the Pat Metheny record, and I remember I couldn't really follow it. It was so a challenge to follow like Roy Haynes and Dave Holland. They play Solar and All the Things You Are, and these tunes that I knew really well, even back then. I know them better now. And I remember getting lost during, when they would trade. I know he trades 36s on All the Things You Are. He trades choruses with Roy Haynes, and man, it's hard to follow. I found that's where I first learned to sort of count in one instead of, if you count to four, you're going to lose it because it's a real up-tempo, All the Things You Are. But that's a little bit of a different record. I mean, he doesn't really like put chords in between his lines, at least not on those tunes. Not in the same way, anyway. And I feel like it's almost another great sort of inspiration of trio playing is Sonny Rollins at the Village Vanguard. Those records are amazing, and obviously he doesn't put in chords, but he's playing the chords, and you just get such a cool, open-sounding vibe. And I don't think that Metheny's necessarily playing like Sonny Rollins on that record, but it's sort of another concept of trio playing, where you're not really worried about the chords. I mean, Grant Green, of course, there's a record was called Green Street where he plays trio. Doesn't play any chords. That's a good one. Jim Hall Live from 1975. Really magical. Like all of a sudden Jim Hall has these crazy like sweep picking chops. And that record's wild. I love that record. It also wins the prize for motivic development, that when he plays Angel Eyes and he starts up something like that, and he plays a whole solo, and then at the very end he goes back to that. So he like does like sonata allegro form with the recap, very literally. That's a great one, man. Such a great record. East Coast Love Affair, Kurt Rosenwinkel. I know he's done other trio records, so that was the one that sort of came out when I was younger, and he really has the chordal thing going on in I don't know how to describe it exactly. I can't really do it. It's sort of chords going along the whole time almost, with the single notes, but differently than Lenny Breau. It's a real technical achievement. On the other side, John Scofield on Route, where he's playing mostly single note stuff. And just, this is something that I try to do a lot, kind of playing, I mean, I can't really play like John Scofield, but maybe like, by playing, the way I try to channel that is, if I'm playing on a D minor, I don't necessarily just play half steps and whole steps. I try to sort of skip strings, and so I'm playing. So it sounds like there's a D minor chord happening, even though there's the bass, and with all that, the contour of the lines, you really hear hear the chord, you know. Joe Pass Intercontinental, that's a great one. I actually got that later. I didn't listen to that as much when I was coming up because it was hard to find these records back in the day, y'all. You couldn't, didn't have streaming services. I didn't find Intercontinental until I was like in my late 20s. So I was listening to For Django, which was also hard to find, but Hank Mackey made me a tape copy. And what else? I mean, Bright Size Life, Matheny, that's such a different kind of record because it's his original material and his original concept. He didn't play standards on that record. And yeah, I mean, guitar trio, it's a challenge. Maybe what I'll do is I'll try to demonstrate. I'll play a couple choruses of Alone Together. I'm going to do this live, y'all. Usually I do the the playing part of these videos at the end, and I edit it in so I can make sure I get a good take that I like. But I think I'm going to just go for it, since I know this song pretty well, Famous Last Words. But maybe I'll start off with the real chordy thing, mixing in the chords, and hopefully in a very natural musical way go into the more, I don't know, we'll see what happens. I'll try to do them both, and this is how I like to play trio. Here we go. So the camera shut off in the middle of that second chorus. Let me see if I can do one more chorus. I thought I was getting to something there, but you know, this is I don't have a team of camera crew here. It's just little old me. So one more. Let me switch it to one chorus. Hopefully this won't cut out in the middle. Anyway, yeah, as I was doing it, I was thinking about some technical things that I do. One is just, for a lot of the time, to make the comping chords quieter if I'm trying to separate them from the single note. Sometimes I'm trying to actually blend the two together like I was doing at the end there. But if I'm just going... I'm consciously playing those chords quieter than the top note, so it sounds like a left hand on the piano. I don't think most pianists comp at the same volume that they play the lines in the right hand. So I try to have that separation. Another thing is I have nails on my right hand that I try to get my sandpaper here, my nail file and all that. I try to keep them pretty good, you know, the tone of them to be similar, and it creates a tone that's pretty similar to the sound of the pick, you know. And I've developed control to where I don't have to play just because I'm hitting with the pick. It's not going to be necessarily louder than the fingers. Like you can't, you know, really tell necessarily. I mean, obviously, if I'm trying to play fast, I would use the pick. What else? Yeah, the sustain thing, relative sustain that I was talking about. Like I can keep the note at the top ringing while I put in a chord that's more staccato underneath it. Trying to emulate Lenny Bro. And then, yeah, the thing I associate more with the, I guess, modern players or Schofield is that a lot of the time it's just skipping strings instead of going go. Just skip the string in the middle, go from the first to the third, second to fourth, etc. And I can pick that too if I'm jumping, because I'm mostly still an alternate picker. I do some down picking, but anyway, what else? Yeah, I mean that's what I like to do. And you know, as I get into it, when I go do a trio gig, I do things at Pascal Bar here with the great Matt Young, Mike Buzecki. Shout out to those cats here in Denton. You know, I try not to think too much about it. The nice thing about the chords, though, is I find that it can kind of anchor the time in a way. 'Cause, you know, guitar players, I often joke that we're capable of rushing and slowing down at the same time. It's incredible how we do it. I don't know. But our time can be a little suspicious, my own included. And I find that by dropping those chords in, it can kind of anchor the time a little bit. So if this gets a little bit off, you know, I have that ba, real kind of standard swinging rhythms with, I guess, theoretically the left hand that hopefully to hook up with if it's a bass and drums, or if I'm just playing with bass, it's really helpful to lock that in there. So anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts about, I'm looking to see if I forgot to mention any records. I probably did, but those are some big ones for me. And you know, I did some trio albums earlier on in my career. They're actually the David Mooney trio, which is nice because I can't listen to them now, and so I'm glad that they're when you search Davy Mooney, they don't show up. But I did a couple trio things on the album Astoriano as well. Anyway, so I hope you found that enjoyable, edifying, and I'll be back next time with some more dissection of hard jazz tunes. So take care.